Greetings, my fellow guardians and fellow travelers. This is a follow-up to the Destiny review. It was an open letter to Bungie and Activision that I posted on the Destiny Facebook page back in June 2015. And to start with, I will address 3 points. The favoritism towards multiplayer, the problems with matchmaking, the damage of weapons is unrealistic. Okay. According to something I once heard, 70% of people who buy first-person shooters, which Destiny has all the appearances of, is certainly not an MMORPG. 70% of the people who buy first-person shooters never play multiplayer. If that is correct, only 30% of the people who purchase Destiny actually play Crucible, i.e. multiplayer, while twice as many never have and will not. So why is there such a preponderance of reward for those people who play multiplayer? Let me give you a simple example. There are 2 basic means of buying gear and weapons beyond the very basic gear, i.e. 20th level. Either you purchase gear with Vanguard marks or with Crucible marks. But this is where things go wrong. There is one place to spend Vanguard marks, and that is a Vanguard vendor. You can spend Crucible marks at the Crucible vendor, as well as Dead Orbit, Future War College, the New Monarchy vendors. These are representatives of the various factions of the city. Furthermore, you can obtain an entire and separate types of Crucible marks playing the Iron Banner events with its own vendor. So far, we have 5 vendors for multiplayers and 2 sources of money to purchase gear and weapons. For the campaign, we have only 1 vendor and 1 source of money. Then Bungie introduced the House of Wolves DLC. There's a version of the Crucible called the Trials of Osiris. If you win the sets of matches, you get huge rewards in gear and or weapons. The losers get bupkis. Actually, if you lose too many matches, you get kicked out. Worst, all of the previous gear you spent weeks upgrading suddenly got downgraded by the expediency of having new upgrade slots requiring new upgrade materials that can be obtained by random loot drops while playing House of Wolves, or by going to the Crucible vendors and purchasing it. Clearly, PvP, i.e. multiplayer, is favored over PvE, campaign only. A quick aside, I should mention that during the House of Wolves, the upgrade material of choice was spin metal. I had no armor when I started House of Wolves that required spin metal to upgrade. I may have had 1 or 2 that had been upgraded who had spin metal. By the time the House of Wolves had finished, I had like 10,000 spin metal, which I had to tediously delete because there's no chance of selling it for marks or some other upgrade material. Then the next DLC landed and spin metal may have been needed for some of the armor. But with a finite amount of space in the vault and on the character sheets, something had to give. But that's a quick aside. Many people who play PvP, multiplayer or Crucible, maybe people who play PvP are more vocal than those who do not. Maybe those who play PvP exclusively are more vocal than those who do not play PvP exclusively. But when they represent potentially 1/3 of your client base, they should not be reaping such a disproportionate part of Bungie's and Activision's attention. Now, of course, the matter is further complicated by the fact that, by its very nature, Destiny is considered multiplayer. You know, it's an open world. You play the campaign solo, you're still going to run into other players. So that complicates things unnecessarily for my argument. But if we define multiplayer as player versus player, and without being coerced or forced into playing multiplayer, then I do believe that there's 2/3 of the people who would never play PvP. And the people I play Crucible with, Scotty almost rarely plays PvE, almost exclusively plays PvP. So they're different animals. They're different, stripes of zebra, so to speak. The second complaint. My second complaint is aimed squarely at Activision but ties into the comments about the Crucible, i.e. multiplayer, and that is the grossly unfair matchmaking. I played Trials of Osiris on 4 separate occasions up to that point. Only in one case were my friends and I closely matched in levels to the opposite team. In the other 3 occasions, we went up against teams that were 2 or 3 levels higher than us. Remember the degree of increase I mentioned above, and translates into better protection for the armor and better damage for the weapons. We got our butts kicked. Going back to an old favorite of mine, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. After playing multiplayer in this game, the equivalent of 60 days, my winning match ratio to lost match ratio stands at 0.6. That means that the team I am on wins 6 matches for every 10 matches the team loses. All other things being equal, it should be you win at the same rate as you lose. I do not play professionally, where obviously your team will eventually win or lose more matches based on how good they are. The real professional players do not often or ever play against ordinary players, and certainly not as a team. If I've played against a clan or people who have organized to play together, it's been less than a dozen times. I believe it's far less than that. So if you don't play against pros or teams made up of people who usually play together, how do you explain this disparity? This is happening in Destiny as well, and not just in the Osiris Trials, that is part of the House of World DLC, but also the regular Crucible. It being the reason, this is one of the reasons I do not play multiplayer in Destiny at that time, while still playing it in Modern Warfare 3. The straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was this one time where I emptied an entire 60 rounds at another player, hitting the other player at least half the time, if not more than that. And he walked up to me and killed me with 1 knife blow. Let me reiterate, I hit him 30 times as he walked up to me. He did not run, he did not sprint. He then killed me with 1 melee attack. A minute later, I had the drop on the same player, and instead of shooting him in the back, I snuck up on him and knifed him in the back. He just calmly turned around and shot me once. Just once. The only thing that counts for this was that his or her armor and weapons were much more powerful than mine. Having said that, we should not have been matched together. I don't mind losing. What I do mind is having no chance of winning whatsoever. This segues nicely into my third complaint. A knife is not more deadly than an assault rifle. An assault rifle is not more deadly than a machine gun. So it should not be that 1 or 2 blows from a knife, 3 or 4 bursts, being 3 or 5 rounds each from an assault rifle, or 20 to 50 bullets from an LMG. If anything, it would be more realistic if it was the other way around. What people may not be aware of is that most light machine guns fire the same ammunition as their assault rifle counterpart, but what makes the machine gun so much more dangerous is that because of their longer barrels, the bullet has more speed when it leaves the barrel, which translates into greater range and damage. Also, usually the carried ammunition is anywhere between 50 to 100 rounds, and if you have an assistant machine gunner with a couple of ammo packs near him, you have hundreds of rounds of ammunition available to you. The penalty, of course, is that machine guns weigh a lot. You walk more slowly, you go less far, somebody else carries part of your ammo load. On a typical Activision multiplayer map, the machine gun should be king. It isn't. The knife is. This is absolutely absurd. I'll give you an example. I don't know if I have the clip, but one guy threw a knife at this guy. I believe the map is called Seafront. A Modern Warfare 3 map, you're close to the ocean, there is a well and some chickens, a marketplace, and anyway, he was near the well, threw it, cleared the marketplace, cleared all the buildings, hit a chopper that was flying overhead, bounced off of it, and hit me in the boot. Yes, the boot. The foot. It killed me. Yeah. So, Yeah, if anything, and I'm not asking for Destiny to be Arma or Call of Duty to be Arma. For one part, Arma doesn't seem to have anything resembling a tutorial, which is really regrettable because I'm not current. I'm 30 years away from being current on military gear. But, you know, maybe, just maybe, a little bit more realism. I do believe that another Bungie game, Halo, actually did the knives right. I never experienced it myself, but it required for an insta-kill that you would sneak up on an enemy and catch him off guard, which would be your classical commando attack where you clamp your hand over his mouth and stab him in the kidney or, you know, slice his throat open. Anything goes wrong in that process and the other guy is yelling at the top of his lungs or spraying machine gun fire into the sky. Anyway, the gig is up. As a final comment in the letter, PS if you want. If you turn in several bounties to the Vanguard, you can get a series of bounties to do for more to do in order to get more and bigger loot. Generally disappointing in of itself. But the series of bounties often includes at least one Crucible bounty, and usually one of the more difficult types. You know, get 50 kills with Tickle Me Elmo or something like that. You're playing the Vanguard, you get Crucible bounties. What the fuck? I am not playing Crucible. What is the logic behind this? Somebody explain to me why. Because when you play Crucible and you cash in a bunch of Crucible bounties, you do not get Vanguard bounties as a reward. Enough said.